This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Welcome back to Behind the Scenes. Last time on Behind the Scenes, we went and delved into 3D printers and DIY shenanigans. So, let me give you an update on exactly what's happened. We've successfully 3D printed a hardware drawer for the Lego cabinet. So we did get the 3D printers to work to that extent. The only issue that we had, which you can kind of see with this, is we still have that kind of lippage issue right here, as you can see. Definitely was a bed leveling issue, and so then we went and 3D printed something else. So over here we 3D printed a wall mount for my Nintendo Switch. We have yet to put on the wall though. This is what it looks like from the back. Actually, one of the things about the bottom of it right here on this right side is that it is actually fairly glossy, which is the exact kind of look we were looking for when making sure to print it level. So we got the 3D printers calibrated and ready to go. We were able to fix the issues with the Ender 3 and the CR10 Mini. We are ready to go back in production except for one teensy little problem. We've been hit with storm after storm after storm after storm, and I don't want to 3D print anything for fear of a power loss or power outage situation, which I'm sure everyone has seen on the news. The amount of storms, especially Northern California, is getting hit with. I can't say the same for the rest of the state. I really don't know what's going on because I haven't really done too much research into it because I'm more worried about the immediate, surroundings. And we found out that my windshield also needed to get replaced. So my car is leaking and I can't fix it till Wednesday. There's a fear of power outages. So we actually haven't used the printers in a couple of weeks. So that's been the whole problem with the situation in its entirety. So we can't get, right now, we're about to go get a studio and an office space. So we have a designated area to where this is where the filmmaking is happening. But we have to get the windshield replaced first because the money that was going to go to that place now has to go into the car. In the meantime, we're going to try to do as many visual effects as possible, build out my VFX portfolio, and just learn new techniques. Starting with the lightsaber. So we actually this week tried to get you guys a lightsaber, not necessarily a tutorial, but a video of us figuring out how to do some of the effects, because let's face it, lightsabers is kind of the thing that we do here. So I've definitely learned things along the way, learned more about the history of the lightsaber and what the history of the effects and the props. And this is kind of a video of the culmination of everything that I've learned thus far, along with kind of what I want to go learn, like the things that I know I don't know. Now, this literally is two effects that get me this. You have the luminance key, where if I turn it off and turn it back on, you see what it does. I have set to key out the darker and keys out the dark. It makes anything that is darker than a certain point transparent. So I just boost up that sensitivity up until right after his clothes become transparent. But the next hardest part is I wanted to keep the color. So then I added a super glow effect. When it's on top of the existing glows of the footage, that helps kind of bring the color back and gives it that artificial glow, which I know this one's a little bit more white, which I kind of don't want. What I ended up doing is once it's on top of the footage, I then added a color grade that was the color correction I was looking for. So now, one of the other things to notice is that when it comes to the motion blur of the red lightsaber, right here, now you don't get that white fan. These lightsabers, the props themselves, this tube of light is transparent. This one has an even whiteness to it. That allows it to have that kind of in-camera glow effect, and even when it's moving, it kind of just keeps it. So if you want to have no lightsaber, craziness at all, I'd recommend, or lightsaber effects work, I'd recommend just getting that kind of a tube. Don't get the fully transparent one because you get that really weird motion blur. To kind of help blend it all together, I put in spark hits. HitFilm has this really cool preset where you could just put in the sparks. I just made it to where there's less of these starry bits.
I'm going.
Over here, this is my friend Mia. So this is a demonstration of how I would do the effects the old way, and you only have, let's say, a curtain rod or a bathroom curtain rod or whatever. Then you do the old way, which I already have a tutorial on in our previous lightsaber video. Hit Film has these really nice light sword effects, which just make it easy. You take the 4 points, you move them around, and then you animate them. But you do have to go frame by frame to get that look. We've gone and done some lightsaber tests. So first, I followed a tutorial on YouTube by a guy named, I don't remember, let's go find him. Crossbow Productions. And I followed his instructions as best as I could. And it's a really good tutorial. I recommend checking it out. It's very easy. Basically what he did. So first you have to 3D model your lightsaber. One of the strengths I found with this is that you're able to model the tip. Now, mine's pretty basic. I was just trying to figure out how to get the effect to work. Wasn't that big of a deal. And then you created essentially what was an anchor point here at the tip and the base. And then you go in your camera view, set your image as the background, and then let it rip. And then you just go in frame by frame and you animate the blade. Now it's kind of hard to tell here when you animate because it doesn't add any motion blur, but when you go to render it out, you end up with motion blur. So when you get the footage, you start off with this. Now, because of your render settings, it will actually try to calculate the motion blur. But when you put it on top of your footage, sometimes the calculation doesn't land that well. So what you end up getting, and that's because, you know, the prop stick is actually bending. It's so, you don't notice it as with your naked eye, but when you get on a still frame of it, yeah, the whole thing is flexing. So in a combination of roll and shutter, you end up with this really bendy stick, and the motion blur doesn't really react very well. I don't know how to fix it. I still am learning, but one of the things that I've already done was added an anchor point, a couple anchor points probably, to the middle of the blade. So that way I could actually try to bend the model with the stick. This is where things like this come in handy, where I would take a white plane and draw the mask that matched that stick. I only have it here for one frame because I was showing my friend Mia about the visual effect. That plus a couple of extra things that I added. So my completed shot kind of looks like this. Now some more footage of effects that I want to try out, because like one of the things that, which I'll probably do in a later episode, I have the footage and elements, is I wanted to chop that lamp behind me over here in half. I thought that would be pretty funny. But one of the effects I did want to try was try to figure out how to mask out the existing prop, the existing stick, to light it up. Now there's a couple of things that I did not take into account for. Number one, when the lightsaber is on, if I turn off the lightsaber effect here, you'll see that my mask, part of this is green, it's very faint, but part of this is green, and then this is not, because the lightsaber isn't, you know, because the mask is cutting out to a layer where I didn't have the light turned on. So that's something I didn't take into account. But I also did not take into account the shadow of the prop. Not that I was really trying, but I just wanted to see, could you potentially paint out the stick? How would you go about it? So then that way you can get that, because as you can see with the glow in the background, the room lights up with the blade, and you can even see that kind of like along my face here, because the prop I'm using has an LED strip that goes up and down. The LEDs go up and down, and you know, I got it right here. It's, you know, this. But it animates up and down, and you get that realistic light going, bouncing off the areas of going up and down, up and down. So in order to keep that, I wanted to see if there's a way for me to paint out that stick for those shots. I think given with a little bit more work, I could probably have made it look a lot better, but given the short time that I have right now, and the fact that I just don't care at the moment, this is just a proof of concept and test, like, oh, okay, I would need to mask this. Oh, I need to make sure that the area behind me is also, you know, the clean plate also has some kind of, but that is my lightsaber shot in Blender. So technically, that's my first like real 3D animation, if you want to go as far as that. But yeah, it was definitely really cool. It was really intuitive how Blender could do the things that it does. So I'm really impressed. It makes me definitely feel better about doing what an effect I do want to try is motion capture armor pieces. There's a Star Wars movie that I want to do in the future, but and this is part of me learning visual effects and doing all of this, is it's about clone troopers. And I have my clone trooper armor, as you guys have seen on the channel before, and I want to be able to use it, but it is very clunky, it's very hard to work with, but there's also supposed to be other clone troopers. So if I can just make parts of the armor or do what they do with Iron Man and just have like the football pads of the armor, and then do the shoot and make the other parts of the armor in CG. Yeah, it's more work in post, but at least, it's cost effective. But yeah, that's how I did the lightsaber effect. Okay, so to sum up the visual effects to lightsabers, this is kind of what I find their strengths and weaknesses to be. So, number one in visual effects, there's more than one way to skin a cat. The key factor is when do you use each method. Number one, rotoscoping is the true fire way to do the lightsaber effect, even though there are definitely techniques to make it easier on yourself, and if you plan for that, that's great. And all of my lightsaber fights have taken in the daytime. I want to do the next one in the nighttime. Because it'll be darker, I can use the Luma key effect and try to go that direction. But for certain shots, I will have to go back and touch up using regular old-fashioned rotoscoping. As a close-ups, Blender's definitely going to be my go-to, because I know one shot in Luke versus Nick, the video I did a couple years ago, there's a part of the video where Nick points the lightsaber pretty much like up to my face, and lightsabers actually do have like a sharp pointed tip. If you watch Star Wars The Clone Wars, you see it all the time. One of the things that Hit Film's rotoscoping doesn't have is that tip, and even if you try to go in with a regular mask, it's really hard to get that uniform point. But with Blender, it's a 3D model, and you take the 2 points, the tip, the tip and then the base of the hilt, you animate to that, and by doing it that way, your model will always have a uniform point. So for close-up shots like that, I would be using Blender all the way. Hell, I'll probably even use Blender for any basic rotoscoping, but except for those extreme curves, that I would turn into either Hit Film's rotoscoping effect, or I would just manually draw the shape out for a couple frames, rotoscope it, move on. With that said, if you have any questions about the lightsaber effects, go ahead and leave a comment down below so that way I can either answer them or make a whole nother video about it. I have no problem doing that. I love making videos once a week. This is a lot of fun. So if you have any questions about VFX, go ahead and leave them in the comments. And comment what VFX you want me to try, and I will go do them because I have nothing else to do. So we'll see you guys next week, and ciao.